Isn't it so weird that your IBS symptoms might be so different from somebody else's? Two people with IBS-D, but one is having cramping and gas, whereas the other one's having heartburn and burning diarrhea. It's not so crazy from the Ayurvedic perspective. It has to do with your mind-body type and your current state of imbalance. In Ayurveda, there's three different mind-body types that we call doshas. The three doshas are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, or air type, fire type, earth, and water type. The three doshas are kind of like three different departments or functions that create a whole entire ecosystem or operating system within inside your body. All three doshas are at play in every single cell in your body 24/7. If you're already familiar with the concept of doshas, you may have heard or tried to figure out what your dosha is. What that means is you're just trying to figure out which dosha is of greatest influence in your body. And usually most people are one or two dual dosha predominant. So for myself, for example, I am Pitta Kapha predominant. So those two doshas, I have to take the most care and attention to keeping in balance so that I stay in a state of health. When your doshas are in balance, you're going to have ideal health. I think that's the goal. So you're going to have more energy, feel better, be brighter, have clear thinking, be enthusiastic, and otherwise experience wholesome health. But when the doshas are out of balance, that's when disease starts to crop up and people develop IBS or any other type of disease. So let's talk about each dosha and their general qualities. All these qualities are going to be a little bit different based on each person. But once we can kind of get like the umbrella view, then we can understand a little bit better. And there's a dosha quiz and an extensive amount of information in the IBS guide that I've provided, which you can download through the link below. So first off is Vata dosha. Vata dosha is made up of two elements, air and ether. So those two elements are the coldest. They're light, dry, rough in quality and their characteristics. And what that usually means then for the Vata type person, you'll have light, dry, thin type skin. The erratic kind of movement of air can cause like bone development would be different. So it's like having lopsided ears or like one eye is bigger than the other. There can be just like a lot of kind of variability in the body. Typically, Vata types have a more slim build. They have drier skin. They typically have fast metabolism. It's not strong, but it's quick. They're typically more flexible. They're typically more active and typically like a lot more alert. In a healthy mental state, Vata types are very creative, very energetic, very bubbly, quick thinking, and adaptable. When a Vata type's mental state is disturbed, then they can be anxious, restless, fearful, indecisive, and forgetful. When Vata is exacerbated or increased, the physical symptoms that can show up are extra dry skin, insomnia, digestive issues, a lot of gas and bloating, which is where the IBS-D, you can have IBS-D with the high motility, but then be experiencing more gas and bloating, whereas a Pitta type would experience more burning sensations. Vata types typically have a tendency to develop IBS-M, so you'd be having that high activity motility of diarrhea. And then once the digestive system dries out because of the air element, then you would experience constipation. And then you just move into this like cycle and flow of build up, extreme release, and then build up, and then extreme release is dry, wet, dry, wet, dry, wet. Next up is Pitta dosha. So Pitta doshas, they typically develop IBS-D, diarrhea. Pitta dosha is comprised of the fire and water element. The qualities of Pitta are hot, sharp, oily, spreading, and intense. The mental disposition of Pitta types when in a healthy state are determined, focused. These are like real leader types, go-getters, goal setters. However, the mental disposition of Pitta when out of balance will be a lot of hot symptoms. So anger, irritability, impatience, anger, judgment, like really critical judgment. Pitta, the physical body, when those are in balance, is typically like a medium build, muscular, somewhat flexible, sometimes like a little bit more redness to the skin. They're going to have a really warm body temperature, strong digestion. However, Pitta, when is in excess, the unhealthy representation of that is acidity, so the heartburn and GERD, inflammation, just in general throughout, rashes on the skin or like really red skin, overheating, and can also be like hyperhidrosis where you're sweating excessively. And so, as mentioned, the Pitta types can typically develop IBS-D, and the reason is because of all that fire and all that water. The food that's going inside of your body, it's over acidic, it's overheating, it's overcooking, and so it kind of like melts, and then it's just screaming right through your whole body. Lastly, Kapha dosha. So Kapha dosha is made up of earth and water elements. The qualities of a Kapha type person, just general over, is like heavy, slow, dull, cool to the touch, oily, dense, or heavy or gross, and stable or static. So what that means for a mental composition is Kapha types are typically very cool, calm, collected. They're compassionate, they're loyal, they're supportive, and patient. The mental disposition of a Kapha type when out of balance is lethargic, depressed, can be very attached or greedy, and like possessive. The physical disposition of a Kapha type when in a healthy state of balance is very strong, very sturdy, really good structure, typically a little bit more heavy boned. They're going to have smooth, like really smooth skin, typically lighter skin. So if there's like a Kapha type in the family, they would be like the more pale one. Generally really strong immunity and really good endurance. The physical disposition, when exacerbated or out of balance, then would be weight gain, congestion, mucus, allergies, and lethargy. Kapha types typically develop IBS-C, constipation. It's slightly different from a Vata type constipation. A Vata type constipation, the stool will be really hard and pebbly, like a deer poop or rabbit poop. Whereas Kapha type constipation is going to be really bulky, really heavy. Typically, like the skin would be more pale, the stool would be more pale. With this type of IBS-C2, with Kapha type IBS-C, then you would be having more mucus in the stools and a lot more mucus development and production. All of this is because of the heaviness of the water and earth element. So if you think of like, if you mix up dirt and water, you get mud, right? So it's like all that like sticky, heavy, slow, just really dense material that's going to lead to stagnation and bulkiness. So that's a pretty big like overview of the three doshas. And again, very general. You could have a combination of all three. You could have a combination usually of two, and that's all totally normal. So again, you can download the guide below, and there's going to be a lot more details on each dosha and a dosha quiz, so you can kind of figure out where you're at. What's good to know is that the doshas are dynamic and they change throughout your whole entire life. So whatever you might be experiencing right now is you're not locked in with that. While, as mentioned before, I'm Pitta Kapha type, so I will be a Pitta Kapha type person for my whole entire life, but that's going to change. The balance of those doshas are going to change depending on what I eat, depending on the environment that I live in, changes based on the time of year. So all these different things we can take into consideration, and we change our diet, we change the spices that we're putting in our food, we change the different types of teas that we might be drinking, our exercise routine changes, all these different things change to always focus on keeping that dosha in balance. And here's where I'll circle back around to why different, if you have IBS-D or 2 or 3 people have IBS-D, but you're experiencing different symptoms, it's not necessarily because of the IBS type that you have itself. It can be because of the disturbance in the dosha. So it's if you have IBS-D and one person eats eggplant and they're fine, whereas another person eats eggplant and they go haywire, it may not necessarily be because they're disturbing the digestive system. It's potentially probably because they're disturbing their dosha. So when the dosha is in excess or increased or angry, basically, then when you provoke that dosha, so for in this case, Pitta type, when you provoke Pitta, that's when Pitta is going to rebel against your body and you're going to have a myriad of symptoms and flare-ups. Eating a type of food that isn't typically a problem for your IBS or somebody else's IBS. So knowing what type of dosha that you have in combination with which type of IBS that you have is going to be extremely beneficial in how you're going to be able to create a healing routine for yourself throughout this program. All right, I think we've covered enough in this video. If you haven't already, you can get the IBS guide down below and this whole entire Ayurveda for IBS course delivered directly to your email. Inside the guide is a dosha quiz, so you can get that figured out and then get more details on each and every single one of the 3 doshas to figure out what your balance is and what that means for you. After you've done that, if you feel comfortable, go ahead and comment below what dosha you are and what symptoms you're experiencing, and we can start a discussion and start to see what different people are experiencing with their different doshas. There's a couple more videos of key Ayurvedic concepts, and then we're going to start digging deep right into all the treatment that you need for your IBS. Thanks so much for watching this video. Again, if it was helpful for you, liking and subscribing would be helpful for me, but also for millions of people that are suffering with IBS around the world. Let's get out there and help people heal. I'll see you in the next video.